Whatever makes you happy, what gets you out of bed, whatever kicks the cobwebs so you'll join in instead.
Good sport!
A victorious daydream.
Good sport!
Don't sweat glory or fame.
Good sport!
Ain't we all on the same team?
Good sport!
It's the name of the game.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of Good Sports. You may notice we're not in the Dufferin Ave Media Network studios here this week.
What's happening?
Where are we? We are here at Merlis Belcher Place, which is home to the Saskatchewan Huskies hockey teams. The basketball teams also practice here. It's also home to the Saskatoon Contacts, the Saskatoon Stars, all kinds of other stuff as well. And as of 2026, it is at least the partial home to our own CEBL franchise, our own Canadian Elite Basketball League team, which is no longer known as the Saskatchewan Rattlers. We're going to get into all of that. We're going to have the new owner of the CEBL franchise joining us right here on the show in a few minutes' time. But sitting to my immediate left to talk about all the news and the new developments that we learned today about this team. Some of you know him as Mr. Baseball, but he's also Mr. Basketball. Fellow Saskatchewan Rattlers CEBL broadcaster Simon Hiatt. Simon, friend of the show. You're the first.
Am I the first two-timer?
First person to be on the show twice.
Are you going to get the Saturday Night Live thing where after 5 I get a jacket?
We'll look into that.
Okay, cool.
We'll see if we get the budget. Maybe by then we'll have some good sponsors that can maybe finance some sweet smoking jackets.
Excellent.
But I really wanted to have you on here to have your perspective because obviously today is a huge day for professional basketball in Saskatoon. There's been a lot of rumors, innuendo, buzz going around for the last, I'm going to say at least month, but it's really picked up the last couple of weeks about the future of professional basketball here in Saskatoon. Of course, the Canadian Elite Basketball League formed in 2019, and the Saskatchewan Rattlers are one of the original 6. I don't think we can actually call them that. That's branded, probably, trademark. One of the first 6 franchises in league history, won the first league championship in 2019, and have been a real solid addition to the sports landscape here ever since. But today is the launch of a new era. They're calling it CEBL 2.0, and so I guess it's Saskatchewan Pro Basketball 2.0 as well. So a lot to go into. Obviously, the headliner here is that the team, we now have the name, a new brand. They've been teasing it, the new era, and the Saskatchewan Rattlers are no longer. They are now known as the Saskatoon Mamba. Saskatoon Mamba. Not just the team name change, but also geographic reference change as well from Saskatchewan to Saskatoon. Before we get into any more details, first thoughts on the name change.
I think it's cool. I like that it's Saskatoon. It's interesting to me that, one of the things that the new owner, who we'll of course talk more about, mentioned was that although the name is going from Saskatchewan to Saskatoon, they also want to make more of a commitment to being a Saskatchewan team and getting out into other communities. This is something he has had experience with in terms of having neutral site games, that kind of thing. That's interesting. In terms of Mamba, I think one of the things that you said to me during the news conference is this isn't for me. This isn't for us. This is for the kids. This is for the young people. This is a new, young, cool identity. I like it. It's going to take getting used to. The other thing we talked about during the news conference is because it's not the Mambas, it's the Mamba.
Singular.
So that'll be a challenge. As you and I, as the guys who have done play-by-play for, I believe, every single Rattlers home game in history.
So. Yeah.
That's a challenge, and clearly this ownership group, they like those types of names where it's tough to say what is one player on this team called. Right. So there's going to be big learning curve for all of us, but it's exciting. I think this is, by and large, aside from the branding, the name change, that sort of thing, I think these changes were things that were needed.
Yeah, absolutely. A refresh was certainly required. All right, I want to sort of jump in right away with the name change because that's the biggest question everyone's been asking. But there's a lot more to unravel here, and we've already sort of touched on it. But we should also just be very clear here, just in the interest of full disclosure, that we are both have been broadcasters for this
Yes.
league and for this team since day one. I've also been involved in a couple other capacities over the last few years as well, whether it's as the PA announcer or doing some behind the scenes work as well. I'm not an employee of the team, make that clear, but just, we want our viewers to have the full picture here of where we're coming at from this. But
if you're looking for us to really badmouth things, we're probably not going to do that.
But we're also going to try to give you our honest takes here on this stuff. So let's rewind then. So for those who still maybe aren't fully aware of how the ownership was set up previously, the Canadian Elite Basketball League, when it launched in 2019, all of those 6 first original teams were owned by an essentially an arm's length umbrella organization of connected to the league known as Canada Basketball Ventures. They have progressively been finding private ownership groups for all of those teams, and the team here was the last one on that list. So that's sort of the wider context. Now, of course, the league has also expanded. They're up to 10 teams now. There have been other franchises added that were private ownership from the start. One of those original teams is actually the Guelph Nighthawks, and they relocated a few years in to Calgary and became the Calgary Surge. And that's important to note because the new owners of the Saskatoon Mamba, same ownership group as the Calgary Surge. Jason Ribeiro is the head of this group. He is the public face of ownership. He took the reins at today's media conference. He's going to be joining us here on the show to answer some of those questions about the next steps and what's going to happen here this season. So there is an ownership group now running 2 teams in the league. Yeah. That's not a completely alien situation. As we know, the Canadian Football League had a similar scenario for several years with David Braley owning both the BC Lions, the Toronto Argonauts, and as Jason pointed out at today's news conference, they're going to be separate operations. This is not one ownership group with one budget kind of divided into 2 line items. This is 2 separate basketball organizations that at the very top of the pyramid have the same ownership, but they're going to be operated independently of each other. And so it's not like there's going to be one team's going to get more resources than the other or that sort of thing. At least that's not the impression that I was given here. So let's stop there before we go even further and just give me your thoughts on sort of the announcement today and what you heard from Jason as the new owner.
I mean, after he finished speaking, I was ready to run through one of the walls here at Merlis Belcher Place because he's a great public speaker, if nothing else. And obviously, what he and his teammates there in Calgary have built has been really at every level quite successful in the CEBL, I believe. I think they've done a great job of building up that franchise since it moved from Guelph with attendance records and on-court success. And I mean, that's going to really be what's key for the Saskatoon. Nickel in the jar, Simon.
Take some
Saskatoon.
Take some
Mamba.
getting used to. Yeah.
How will this all play out on the court? Because the rebrand is great and all, but it's been a tough few years stretch for this Saskatchewan basketball franchise. So are they able to bring in the bigger free agents? We've certainly seen some of those. Even during the lean times, we've seen some great players here. Hasn't necessarily led to a ton of wins. Who are they going to be able to bring in for the coaching staff, which is going to look not entirely different, but significantly different next season? So there's a lot of work for them to do, and they know that, and I don't think they're scared about that. But it's a tall challenge. This is kind of step one in many steps towards making this franchise more relevant, making it more successful, and then keeping it that way.
There's a lot of sales right now, right? At this point in time, you have to sell the existing fan base on the rebrand. You have to sell to new fans and convince them to come on board and join this party, this event. It is. We know it's well established by now. I think that anyone who's been to even one game understands just how good the product on the court is, how good, how talented these players are. The caliber of basketball in this league is terrific. It's a tier, maybe a tier and a half below the NBA in terms of the talent level of these players. There are players that have gone from this league and signed contracts in the NBA, some that have gone on to great success in the G League. A former Rattler from a couple seasons ago, Elijah Harkless, he was a player of the month in the G League just in December, I believe, with the Utah G League franchise. So there's a direct through line from the players that play in the CEBL to the absolute top tier of basketball in the world. So that's important to reestablish, maybe, or for fans that are just joining the fun, just wondering what exactly the product is like. It's a great product. I don't think you need to sell that very hard. But there's this whole new brand, and the other major headline here today, although there's a ton of them, obviously, is the venue where the team is going to be playing. We're not here at Merlis Belcher Place by coincidence. As it was confirmed, this was a poorly kept. A lot of this was fairly poorly kept secrets in a lot of cases.
To keep these things quiet
anywhere it is, but there's been a lot of interest in the last several years of having the team play at least some of its games here at Merlis Belcher Place, which, for those who don't know, has a seating capacity of roughly 3,000, about 2,700 and change, but you can expand it out depending on the event. There have been Grand Slam of curling events here. We've seen this building full for Husky hockey playoff games. Folk Fest has used this building as a pavilion. It's a great facility.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, a lot of folks felt it was the perfect size for this team, which, for those who don't know, has typically averaged roughly 2,000 to 2,200 fans. I'm going off the top of my head, but I think that's roughly the number.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Pretty much consistently throughout, take away the sort of half COVID-ish year in 2021 where some of the games were limited attendance. But generally speaking, you're talking 2,300 fans, a couple games that have gone closer to that 3,000 mark. But essentially, perfect size crowd to put in this building.
Yeah.
And it's Saskatoon Center, a great venue for a lot of reasons, but 15,000 seat facility, that crowd did not feel like 2,000 fans at times. It felt like half that, just because of how much empty space there was in there. So the end result is they're going to be playing at both venues this season. This is just me spitballing here, but I sincerely believe that the goal is likely to eventually play all the games here at Merlis Belcher Place. And then if you start selling out regularly and you're having issues with ticket demand, there's no reason you can maybe re-engage with Saskatoon Center at some point down the line. If you're starting to say, hey, we're starting to get 5,000-6,000 people want to buy season tickets.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great?
That'd be a great problem to have.
Sure. But anyways, so the announcement today was that for the 12 home games this season, 7 of them will be here at Merlis Belcher Place. 5 will be over at Saskatoon Center. You and I are very grateful that with the Mamba name, at least we keep the snake motif.
Yeah.
So we can still reference the home court as the Snake Pit here in Saskatoon. So I think we're going to keep that one going for sure.
Absolutely.
I don't think I also mentioned that we mentioned the name, but it's going to be a very purple forward by the looks of what we've seen here. They showed off some T-shirts. They had some young high school basketball players in attendance today, modeling some Saskatoon Mamba swag, black T-shirts with a vivid purple logo and branding, which our resident DJ Charlie Hustle is very happy about. Big Prince fan. He was telling me, so he said, "I love it. That's an easy sell for me." And that was another thing that came out of this media conference, was how much they want to really be fashion forward and really hit something and a look and a brand that is really distinct and stands out. And something that was kind of a surprise to me, because we know how well people buy Rider merchandise, for example. The president of the CEBL, Ty Mazzaro, was here as well, and he said consistently the Rattlers have been in the bottom third in the league in terms of merchandise sales. They also mentioned that the brand didn't seem to really hit or resonate with youth in the community. And obviously part of that is just the selling of the brand. Part of that is the outreach with the community, which takes me to the next point, which is that community was front and center in the messaging today. There's a lot of fears going around that this sale of the team is going to lead to a relocation. This season is a test case, if you will, to see if the basketball team can remain here. Everything we heard, and we can only take it on face value, suggests the opposite, that this group is here for the long haul. They are invested in this community. I think that is reinforced by the fact that it's now the Saskatoon Mamba, not the Saskatchewan Mamba. And so I want to get your thoughts on that. What did you make of sort of the community side of the messaging here today?
Sure. I mean, that's obviously so important to any team, but especially in a market like Saskatoon, which is, it's a good sized city, but compared to some of the other markets, it's a little on the smaller side. So you really need to engage the community. You need to engage the province as a whole, which I was happy to hear that that's still part of their plan, even though they are going to the Saskatoon branding. Time will tell. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. The evolution, not just of this franchise, but of the league itself. There's been significant changes especially over the last year or so. Mike Morreale no longer involved. As you mentioned, we now have a new president, Ty, coming in, and he spoke very well, and enjoyed hearing from him today. Nothing is guaranteed, as we know, but I agree with you. I was very happy to hear a commitment to the future, to this team being in Saskatoon.
Yeah,
for the foreseeable future.
100%. I mean, that, I think, if you were like sort of triaging some of the rumored changes prior to this announcement and sort of the level of support publicly for various things, I think you could sort of go in descending order from private ownership. I think there's almost a 100% consensus around the community that this is something that has been sorely needed for a while to open up the purse strings a little bit here. I don't think you can open purse strings, but you know what I'm saying. Open up the wallet a little bit. We still don't know, as we don't know yet exactly what the price tag was to buy this team. But if you read, the interview or heard any of the interviews with Barry Rollick, the now former president of basketball operations here at this team, he spoke to the media after he was let go a couple of weeks ago and was very blunt about the fact that he felt kind of hamstrung by not being able to spend money at certain times on certain things, partly because you're still under sort of that arm's length league owned situation. Now, not league owned, but CBV owned situation. And it was just like extra layers of approvals that you need to spend anything on anything, right? And so now that there's private owners, so that's, I think, top of mind. I think fans in general are very supportive of that and are excited to see what that can mean in terms of the financial investment in the team, in the organization, and what that means for the community as well. Then when it comes to the venue, I think, again, broadly, very, very strong support for that, for playing games here at Merle Special Place, which I already touched on. The rebranding is the tougher sell, but I think if the product continues to be good and if winning, a few more wins follow, I think people are going to forget about it. And folks who are maybe on the fence or don't like the name change, we'll get over that. I think we've seen that in previous iterations of professional basketball here in Saskatoon with the Storm and the Slam, who were only around for 2-3 years apiece, and one right after the other. The fans pretty much adopted the new one after the old one left. Right. It takes a little bit of adjustment, and there was an acknowledgement today of the understanding that fans have invested money and spent money on merchandise over the last 7 years, which takes me to another cool thing that was unveiled today. Certainly not near the top of the headlines, but certainly a big olive branch extended to all those fans who are upset about the name change or might be upset about the name change. There is going to be a Rattlers legacy game every season. They said every season there's going to be one game, home game, where the team is going to wear those throwbacks. They're going to call themselves the Rattlers. And I think that is a very smart move to maintain that connection between the first iteration of this franchise and the current one. And it allows those investments that people made in that merge to still have some life. And it'll be fun for everyone. And we've seen the Surge do that as well. The Surge do Calgary 88 games, harkening back to old professional hoops team in Calgary as well. So this is nothing new for this ownership group. They've seen it work in Calgary, and they're gonna do it here as well. The other thing that I thought was really interesting was his mention about going smaller, going intimate, and not worrying so much about trying to capture this huge umbrella. We've seen that in the fact that they're called Saskatoon now, and they reference the fact that the vast majority of the tickets are sold to fans that live here in Saskatoon. And so instead of trying to invest and capture, spend a lot of money in trying to get that small percentage of fans from out of town, this wasn't explicitly stated, but it just sure sounds like they're exploring ideas about having the odd neutral site game in another market in this province, whether that's Regina. I would suggest Moose Jaw should be top of that list, near the top of that list, and Prince Albert would be the first
basketball market in Prince Albert.
Absolutely. I mean, Gage Grassick's hometown. Dallas Emerson. We had some great players come out of Prince Albert. So though that was not stated publicly or mentioned explicitly, I would be
alluded to a little bit.
I think it would be a really reasonably safe bet that we might see. Maybe not this season, but perhaps next season. Maybe even this season. I don't know. But there's a lot to get to on the basketball operations side as well. We are just over 3 months away from tip-off on season 8. So what do you think about the work that is to come now here between now and the early May?
I think we have the right people at the very top. With Jason coming in today, he has the experience. This is kind of what they went through in Calgary of having to kind of build something from the ground up in a relatively short period of time. And the good thing is, there is that basic infrastructure from the Rattlers, the legacy of what has been built. So I think it's a lot of work. Free agent. I mean, every year, every player is a free agent. So you have to build your roster, and obviously there are certain players that we've seen come back to Saskatoon several times because they like it here and the city likes them. So I wouldn't be shocked if we saw some of those familiar faces. I have zero inside info in terms of player movement, although free agency is currently underway.
Just opened, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens if we see some of those familiar faces. It's a big task, but there is a lot of basketball talent out there. And, you and I have both talked to players who played with the team that was the Rattlers, who frankly had never heard of Saskatoon before they came here, but came here and loved the experience and loved the city. I mean, Saskatoon in the summertime is a phenomenal experience. I'm not telling you anything you don't need to know. This it's a big task. It can be tough, I think. In addition to the financial obstacles, I think, for some players it was like, so I can go to Vancouver or Toronto or what? But when players got the chance to experience it, many of them were very happy with their experience, and that word spreads.
Yes,
it spreads among that player fraternity, saying, "Hey, you know what? Give this city a shot because there's a lot of great things there."
Well, and despite the sort of financial constraints under the previous ownership, by and large, especially in the last couple of years, and talking with players, very positive about their experience in terms of how they were treated by the organization. The living accommodations, being able to have perhaps their spouse or their partner here, maybe their kids. We saw it with Nate Pierre-Louis last year, Jordan Bowden, American players, which I should point out. Obviously, the league is Canadian driven, but it is your import players that really drive your success. Let's be honest about it. There's some great Canadian players in the league, and they're just as critical. But the difference really between going to that championship level and not is the caliber of those import players you bring in. And for those who don't understand the sort of the basketball calendar, summertime is generally the off season for most of these players. So the ones who choose to play in the CEBL are doing so because they're very committed either to trying to get to that next level, to bettering themselves and their game, all that sort of thing. And so Saskatoon in a lot of ways is very appealing for them because it doesn't necessarily have quite as many of those distractions of your Vancouvers, your Montreals, your GTAs, that sort of thing. Those are great cities and great places to live and to play. But when you want to really focus on basketball for the season, not like there's nothing to do. We know there's plenty to do here.
Absolutely.
But it is, I've heard so many players who didn't know anything about Canada, didn't know anything about Saskatchewan, to come here and say there's a homey feeling. They like the sense of community, and it is, just quiet enough that they can really focus on the reason that they came here, which is to play basketball. So all of that is being said. There was a couple of quotes that I kind of wrote down that kind of go back to this whole notion of, how committed is this ownership to this market. One was lasting success in Saskatchewan. And the other one was finally here to stay.
Yeah.
That was really interesting. And that was one of I didn't write who said he what. I think one was Ty Mazeru, the president of the league. The other one was Jason Ribeiro, the new owner. But those really jumped out at me because, again, you're obviously selling the fans, the public on this move, this rebrand. So you're going to say things like that. But I mean, those were pretty pointed statements.
Yeah.
And I would hope that would assuage some fears that fans have, because I've seen, I'm sure we've all seen the chatter about, they're just going to see how it goes this year. And then if it doesn't go well enough, then we're going to move the team to maybe a Kelowna or something like that. We actually saw the announcement yesterday. There's going to be a neutral site game in Kelowna, which I think initially maybe some fans saw and go, because it's going to involve the Rattler. There you go. The Mamba. There it is. One nickel in the jar for me. Looney in the jar. The Mamba are playing that game, but it is actually a Vancouver Bandits home date that is actually going to be that Kelowna game. So for anyone who's like looking at that and going, that's a trial balloon for moving this team to Kelowna, I would say, based on everything I've seen and heard, I wouldn't worry too much about that. They're not taking a home date away from this market.
Right.
They're taking one out of Vancouver. It's more of a Bandits driven initiative, but very cool. There's going to be opportunity for both the Mamba and the Bandits to play. So that's a bit of an aside there, but the commitment there seems very, very strong. So we're just about to get Jason on. So I just kind of want to wrap it up here with just in general. I mean, you kind of touched on it off the top, but what do you think this is going to look like, come May? And what's your sense of what do you think the reception is going to be like in the public?
I think whenever you take something established and change it, there's going to be a certain level of pushback, and maybe for more from people from our sort of age demographic and above us. But I believe this is one of those things where we'll get used to it pretty quickly, and I really like the from an aesthetic purpose or perspective. I really like the look, the purple. I like the snake. There was reference made to how it kind of echoes the curves of the South Saskatchewan River.
There's an S
it also
in there.
kind of looks like an S with an extra chunk where the head is. I think we'll grow to like it, and I do really like that it is now a Saskatoon team, because it's a Saskatoon team.
It is. It has always felt like a Saskatoon team. It sometimes felt like calling it Saskatchewan Rattlers, and I understand why they did that, especially when you launched the league.
Yeah.
You're trying to make this a national league and go coast to coast. But it almost felt at times like a bit of lip service to the rest of the province, and sort of like this sort of like passive attempt to maybe draw in some extra tickets instead of this is ours.
Yeah.
The other thing that just kind of popped in my head right now is the fact that we got a little synergy with the color-wise with the berries now too.
Ooh,
so I wonder if we
very
might maybe be able to
nice.
sort of link those up, the two summer teams here in Saskatoon, and maybe there's some berries and Mamba stuff that can kind of collab on that.
I appreciate you bringing baseball in.
There you go,
for me.
Mr. Baseball. I wanted to wrap it up there. Simon, obviously there's going to be a lot for fans to digest over the next few days. We're still getting used to it. We've already put a couple loonies in the jar here. So thanks a lot for hopping on, man.
Thank you, Flats.
No one I'd rather sort of chop this up with, and going to be exciting.
Always a
In
pleasure.
May to call our first
Can't wait.
Mamba game. We got to work on some signature calls now. We got a few weeks to come up with that.
Absolutely.
All right.
We'll workshop.
There you go. There's Simon
Thanks,
Hiatt. Stick around because we've got Jason Ribeiro going to join us right away here on the show.
Good sport.
All right. It is a very exciting day here in Saskatoon for not just basketball, but for sports in general here in this market. Obviously, it's not every day you get to launch a new team, and it's even rare when you get to relaunch that team. Jason Ribeiro, new owner for the Saskatoon Mamba. I have to still get used to saying that. I think I said Saskatchewan a couple times already. Thanks so much, first of all, for giving us some of your time here. I know there's a lot of demands on your time here today. Obviously, a very big day. So the Saskatoon Mamba, new name, partially new home here at Merlis Belcher Place as well. The first question I guess I have to ask you is, what you already run one team in this league, the Calgary Surge. Why did you want to get invested in the team here in Saskatoon?
Look, I think, well, first of all, thank you for having me. I think, we didn't start from that place, right? We started looking at, okay, this is a sector we want to operate in. Sports, entertainment, culture, they're powerful vehicles to build community with. They're powerful vehicles, I think, to bring people together. So after our first year in Calgary, we actively started looking at a bunch of different sports and a bunch of different leagues. Met with commissioners, met with founders, met with operating teams, both domestically and abroad. And all roads led us back to the CEBL. And so as wonky as the thought sort of started, we started intentionally with a wide end of the funnel, and it just narrowed and said, if we could get past the idea that we have an existing Calgary franchise, would we want to interlay with community in this way in Saskatoon? Do we like the market? Do we like the people? Do we think that the basketball culture exists? Do we think we can compete in the market against some of the other sports properties with our different operating model? And the answers were a resounding yes every single time. And then it was just whether the timing fit. And so, sometimes you're not in charge of the timing, and these things happen really quickly. And this one happened extremely quickly. So again, this is, investigation for about a year about looking at Saskatchewan and Saskatoon in particular. But really, this is 45 days of a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but a clear vision for how we want to engage the community differently.
And the headliner, of course, people are going to see is the new brand, the name change, color scheme, the whole thing. Saskatoon Mamba. You spoke about it at this press conference about sort of the curvature of the river. I love the logo. It's got the S in there. But for me, I mean, the Saskatoon part is almost, if not more significant than the Mamba name change, because we're going from Saskatchewan to Saskatoon. So I know you kind of discussed this briefly in the media conference, but if you could maybe expand on that a little bit and just explain the thought process behind going from Saskatchewan to Saskatoon.
Yeah, look, I'm a data guy, right? So the fact of the matter is, I think 99% of the people that come to these games when they were the Rattlers were from Saskatoon. And so it always felt odd to me that over 7 years within the franchise, and again, today's about the future. I don't want to look too far into the past or cast aspersions, but it always felt odd to me that there was the Saskatchewan framing, but not really that interlay with the rest of the province. There wasn't that game in Prince Albert. There wasn't that game in Regina. Some dalliances with some training camps, but not to the level that I thought you needed to be able to say that confidently. And so going back to first principles, recognizing that you have an engaged fan base who live here, who are actually prideful about being from Saskatoon. You heard from Steph Polka, CEO of Discover Saskatoon, talk so beautifully about this place. I've been talking to the CEO of the Chamber and talking about the businesses and the tech startups and all of these different things that are happening in Saskatoon. Saskatoon deserves that level of civic pride and attention. And, I think a lot of teams would try and go big to make themselves feel more important. We're the opposite. Let's go small. Let's go intimate. Let's go deep. And then let's figure out, once we've built that foundation and stabilized things, let's be clear. This can easily be named the Saskatchewan Mamba in 3 or 4 years, but we will earn the right to call ourselves that. And hopefully we lay a track record, not just breadcrumbs, but an actual track record of engaging the rest of the province so that we can be worthy of being the province's team.
And that leads me right to the question that I think a lot of fans have, which is, okay, so the team's being sold, which I think there's generally very broad support for. I think there's an understanding of sort of the financial constraints that the organization had been operating under.
Can I challenge that?
Sure.
I don't believe that to be true.
Okay.
And I think a lot of deference should be given to CBV and Richard Petko. And I say this having the luxury of looked at 8 years of financial statements. Those financial constraints don't exist.
Okay.
And I say that from someone looking at the operations of our Calgary franchise. There are areas where they were spending more.
Right.
So I don't think that that's sort of tenable, and I don't think we're putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to all of a sudden throw a lot of dollars around. I think what our approach is to build for purpose and to have a clear vision, and the fans will determine whether they buy in or not. The community stakeholders that were here in this room will determine whether they buy in or not. And if there are things that are not working, we'll replace them and change them and adapt. But this idea that there was underinvestment in this franchise, I just don't think is true.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. I know we've heard some comments publicly, from a few people who have been attached that have maybe suggested otherwise. But I mean, I appreciate that perspective absolutely from yourself, from right at the top. But what I was going to get at is that this notion, I guess, that fans they're fearful of is this a trial run? And we even had a question come up in the media conference today about the commitment to this market and a long-term basis. I was just saying to Simon, who we had on the show earlier, that some of the things that stood out to me were a couple of phrases were lasting success in Saskatchewan, and we're finally finally here to stay. So that suggests to me that this is no fly-by-night situation where you're checking to see if people are going to support it, and if it don't, you're kind of going to pull up stakes. You're here for the long haul.
Yeah, I think we care about this market. Like we chose not only this league and this team, but we chose this market. We didn't choose to go to an expansion market. We could have done that. If we wanted to double down on the CEBL, there were probably other ways in which we could have done it. The fact that this was an existing franchise that we thought we had a different take on how we could operate. Obviously, the geography being close helps. That certainly doesn't hurt. But I think that perspective of knowing, look, I'll even be even more candid. I've had all these conversations with folks on the ground. It's a beautiful community. And as much as I think about passionate sports fans, I remember the last time I was here, it was during a snowstorm just before the holidays. And everyone expected my meetings to be canceled and all this kind of stuff, not knowing that I'm from Calgary and meetings don't get canceled for weather ever. Nope. But I just saw droves of people leaving the Reme Modern Art Gallery. saw droves of people leaving the Persephone Theater. I've heard about all the sort of excuses as to why these things aren't resonating. And I just think that people are parking their dollars elsewhere and doing other things. The city doesn't slow down or stop just in the summer. So I think that there's a perspective where we may need to work twice as hard in this first year. We may need to fail. We may need to take some experiments and try. But I think this is a community that will reward us for trying. And I don't feel as though there has been that perspective where things have kind of either felt stilted or flat or not changing. My hope is that the series of changes that we've outlined show how serious we are, not just for the present day, but for this is a lot of work to do if you're going to leave in August.
Yeah, and I will also point out this is already the longest running professional basketball franchise in this market. There's been 3 others that I can name right off the top of my head that only had brief tenures, right? Yeah. So you've already got a good baseline to work with here. The venue, 7 games are going to be here at Merlis Belcher Place, 5 at SaskTel Center. Why was that important to get in here? I know there's been a lot of folks. I've been right at leading the charge to try to get this team in this building. Why does it make sense now?
Yeah, I think, again, today's about the future. So I don't want to look too much to the past, but I think it made sense then when you were probably calling for it, and a lot of fans were probably calling for it. And so I can't speak, not being engaged at that time, as to why it hasn't happened. All I know is I have a responsibility to the fans to meet them where they're at. And it seems like the most obvious thing in the room to do was to make this adjustment. And again, you can't do that alone, and you can't do that unilaterally. So to have come from the outside and work with the amazing team at SaskTel Center, work with the amazing folks from the U of S, and the Huskies in particular, that are a huge part of why we were able to pull off this announcement, including New Stadia, who's the operator here, is really thrilling. And I think it's just important that, look, we have an operating model that works very specifically in Calgary. It started very intimate. It started in a venue not unlike this one. And these are almost the hidden gems of this country. We know there's a missing middle we need to figure out in that 5,000 to 7,000 range in a bunch of different major cities across when it comes to venues. But these 3,000 seat venues, when they're pumping, when I've seen a number of target time winners at Winsport, and you would have thought the roof was going to blow off the place. And the idea that I think this is a less professional venue just doesn't hold water. It doesn't hold water. And if anyone should feel that way, it's the guy that does the 12,000 at the Dome and the 40-piece orchestra, and the players enter from the audience, and a Stampede show band flash mob at headlining the Stampede. I'm really, really confident that we're going to be able to put on a great show here. And hopefully folks got a taste, just even at the press conference, of feeling the different vibe and energy here. So it was really important. It was a no-brainer to do. And I'm just so thrilled with our partners that we were able to get it done.
Well, if anyone who was in this building last March for the Canada West Men's Hockey Championship Series know, you can attest to what this place is like when this building is packed. It is a great atmosphere.
And it's funny, I saw those Instagram clips with the pyro and the players smashing into the boards, and like it was rocking. And I remember thinking, even at that time, before this context even came up, I was like, man, that looks good. Yeah. Right. So I'm really, really thrilled.
Well, and it's a gem, and it's still quite new as well, which is nice. You got all those facilities around. All right. I know we don't have much time, but I do want to touch on 2 quick things. Sure. One is the C word, community, because that was so front and center today with the announcement. When you're talking about being here for the long haul, it won't happen without that connection with the community. I know, talking with people within the community, I've been around this team since day one. There was a feeling, at least in the last couple of years, that maybe there was some opportunities that were missed in terms of connecting with the community. What can you say to that piece, and how vital is that going to be to the long-term success?
Yeah, I think this is not a perspective that we have that just works in one city. This is a perspective I believe that we have on Canada, right? And I think if you are earnest in reflecting the community back to itself, both its beauty marks and its blemishes. One of the beauty marks are those institutions that I just mentioned, the Persephone Theater, Remy Modern Art Gallery, a great restaurant, Shelter, that I went to the other day.
Shout out Shelter.
Shout out Shelter. But I think those are beauty marks. Let's highlight them. We're a cultural vehicle. We're a marketing vehicle. We're a storytelling vehicle. Let's reflect those. And where there have been blemishes, where there have been communities that have not been engaged, where there are communities that have had a bad experience, we also have to address those blemishes, right? And so I think that reflection part is really key. The entertainment part is really, really key. This is as much an entertainment product as it is a pro basketball perspective. And all the sort of fancy things that we do when we go to the Saddle Dome aside, it has not distracted from the basketball. And those were questions that we got from fans in year one, like, why are you focusing on this and why are you focusing on that? And we've really separated the signal from the noise so that the track record speaks. And so getting to work with the arts institutions here, I think, is going to be really important in creating a different kind of entertainment experience, because there are multiple forms of entertainment. And then that last piece is unity. Really, it goes beyond the basketball community. And I think I spoke to showing up where no sports team has ever gone. That's what we're committed to doing in Saskatoon. So there's an open hand if it really just means showing up and our staff playing Papa Shot with a few folks. If it means going outside the region, I had a really wonderful almost 2-hour call with Chief Mark Arcand the other day. We're meeting actually in Calgary next week as he was traveling today. So we're actually going to meet in Treaty 7. But I was excited about the prospect of him saying, after a 2-hour phone call, this sounds like a approach to partnership that resonates with me and to my community. So I'm happy to start that work and process, similar to the relationship we're striking with the Saskatoon Public School District, which had all these kids here today. So again, if you want to know where our values lie, look at the people that are standing next to us. And look at the ways that we're trying to earnestly reflect the community.
Well, I was pretty stoked to see kids from my alma mater, Bedford Road Collegiate here, home of the best Western Canadian high school basketball tournament there is, the Brit Classic. Lastly, the basketball, because obviously none of this happens without the product on the floor. It's a great product, as we know, as you know, as I know, the caliber, the talent, all of that stuff. Obviously, there's a short runway here now to the start of the season, about 3 months. Basketball operations, can you just give us a sense of the timeline in terms of a GM, a coach? When are we going to start to hear about players being signed?
Yeah, I think free agency, there's a lot of chatter and movement early on. But I think you guys know a lot of folks make decisions really close to the start of the season, right? And I think there are no rules into how you build a championship winning roster or not. I think we've proven from our Calgary franchise, 3 head coaches in 3 years, 90% roster turnover. People were writing us off every single year, and we've shown that you can build a team that can build a culture and really, I think, bring a premier product, but a winning product. And so I'm excited about, in the next couple of weeks, to introduce some of those people that I've entrusted to handle that. Obviously, there's going to be a clear separation between Calgary and Saskatoon. I've even taken myself off as being the signing authority on the contracts in Calgary. And I'll close by saying, on the basketball front, part of the reason we're able to do this in Saskatoon is because of the strength of what we built in Calgary. This belongs to a bunch more people than Usman and I. And it didn't start that way, right? Felt like it was very tight. I mentioned that in the press conference, very connected to us. Then we started to see all these young kids and, a lot of diverse staff coming in with no pro sports background. And these are becoming really top tier executives, not only in our league. We were honored with Franchise of the Year, I think, this past year. That's their victory. This was their coup today, to be able to gather the community from that perspective. So I'm excited to talk to the fan base about some of the new voices that are going to be carrying that forward. But I'm more excited about the fan base getting to deal with the product, the ticketing, the different approach, and also addressing the fact that the team has not had success in the 3 years that I've been in the league. And I think that deserved action. And I think the response has been that that's appropriate action to take. And we are action oriented. So we're listening, we're here. And I think that I'm really excited about the season ahead.
Well, if anyone who has followed the Surge since you guys set up shop, the success on the court has been very noticeable right from day one. I know you're still looking for that elusive title, but you've been right in the mix. And so if that is a bellwether of perhaps things to come, there's no guarantees. It's sports. And that's why we love it. It's the best reality drama there is. But to put those building blocks in place, I think there's we can see what the case study in Calgary. So I think that should hopefully generate some more excitement as well for fans here. Jason, I know you've got tons of stuff to do, tons of people to talk to. We so appreciate you coming here on Good Sports. We do try to be that direct voice to the community here. And hopefully we'll have you on again once things are up and running and the season tips off in May.
Yeah, it won't be the last time. Thank you so much for all your support, and to the community and to the fans. Thank you as well.
All right. Stick around. A little more Good Sports still to come.
Good Sport!
Okay, so there's a lot to process there, obviously, a lot of new information to digest. But now we know officially the Saskatchewan Rattlers are now known as the Saskatoon Mamba, and they're tipping off in just over 3 months' time, the 8th season of the Canadian Elite Basketball League. So a lot of work still to take place between now and then to get the team put together for its first season in the Mamba uniform. Very cool stuff. Can't wait to see those jerseys, see what those look like. Love that color scheme. It is a lot for the fans who have been invested in the Rattlers to get used to, but I do think that there will be an adjustment process, and then fans will be fully on board with this team as well. And again, it comes down to the product, right? If this team starts to find more success, then I think a lot of those fears about, the brand change and where's the team going to be in 5 years from now, I think a lot of that stuff goes by the wayside once you start to see it in real life, in action, on the floor. So everything, I always choose to lean to the side of positivity here. There is a lot of change. Change is difficult for people to process sometimes. There are fans not only who had money invested in the old brand, but also emotionally invested in the old brand. But change is also a constant. It is inevitable at times. And as I pointed out earlier, this is already by far the longest running professional basketball franchise we've had in this city. So a new injection of energy, of life, and of dollars. Appreciate Jason Ribeiro kind of clearing up maybe some misconceptions perhaps about the financial situation prior to this ownership change. We're obviously never privy to the books when it comes to that stuff, but I think it speaks to, again, the experience that players have had in the past, where they were taken care of. So I think that reinforces that. But it's just an exciting time. I think it really comes down to that excitement level. Now, the proof is going to be in the pudding in terms of that connection with the community. And the words are there. The actions will hopefully soon follow. Make those connections and make some sort of maybe some different forays into the community than we maybe seen in the past from this organization, changing up how they do business and how they interact with various community groups, and not just within the sports community, but the arts community. You heard Jason mention that as well. And all that comes part and parcel to a really solid sports entertainment product. We're talking about, as he was just telling me after we finished the interview, this is 12 nights in the summertime where you want to be the thing that people want to do. It's basically like putting on 12 concerts over the summer. So very exciting to see what other sort of elements come around, sort of surround the basketball and the game night experience. And can't wait to see how things tip off. We'll kind of wrap it up there. I want to thank the team, the Mamba, first and foremost, for kind of supporting us doing this show here from Merlis Belcher Place, where, of course, 7 of those home games are going to be played this coming season. And thanks to the Dufferin Ave Media Network crew, especially LB, Adam Brookman, for making this all happen as well. The ones and twos back at the shop. Thank you so much, and for their enthusiastic support of taking this show out of the studio on location. We'll hopefully be doing more of this in the weeks and months ahead. We're still going to do the usual shows here on the weekly basis, but this was kind of our first test run to go outside the studio, and I think it's gone pretty well indeed. And thanks so much again to Jason Ribeiro for being so generous with his time, the head honcho. It's not often you get a chance to really sit down with the man in charge on the day that they made such an announcement, when everyone wants a piece, and he's willing to give you, 15 plus minutes of his time to really break down some of this news. There's a lot there. So by all means, dig into it. We'll continue to discuss it in the weeks ahead here on the show. And as more news comes out about the basketball operations side, we'll certainly be bringing you that as well, right here on your number one local sports show, Good Sports. We'll be back to our usual format next week with a new guest. So please do tune in there. Oh, thanks again to Simon Hiatt as well for being on here, our first 2-time guest. Don't want to overlook Simon. He's a great guy, and someone who's perfect to sort of bounce some of this stuff off of. So thanks to Simon as well. And thanks to you for watching. I hope you got a little more context to the news here today on the show. That's what we were trying to do, and hopefully we accomplished that. I'm Ryan Flaherty. Thank you so much for watching. Join us again next week for another edition, and be a good sport.
Whatever makes you happy, what gets you out of bed, whatever kicks the cobwebs so you'll join in instead.
Good sport.
A victorious daydream.
Good sport.
Don't sweat glory or fame.
Good sport.
Ain't we all on the same team?
Good sport.
It's the name of the game.